Don't make it about yourself. As white women, we need to use our privilege to make positive changes. If you find yourself talking over or speaking for BIPOC individuals, or God forbid, correcting them, just take a beat. And instead, we can put our listening ears on. So, do learn from and amplify the voices of those who have been historically marginalized and use the privilege you have in order to push for systemic change. As white people, we have a lot to learn and unlearn. So do check your blind spots. You are responsible for your outcome.
Video makes me want to pretend to be black like Kamala Harris, just so I cannot be associated with white women at all. Y'all are on your own, okay? But I actually do want to make some serious points about the video. Number one, isn't it interesting that white people are allegedly the fragile ones, the privileged ones, and yet what does she explicitly say? God forbid you as a white person speak over or correct non-white people, because God knows they're always right and they always deserve the floor. But we are the privileged, fragile ones. And you'll often hear this, and it'll be framed as decenter yourself as a white person and center the BIPOC, the Black, Indigenous people of color. And I want you to know that that is a bastardization of scripture. It is virtuous to humble yourself. It is virtuous to sacrifice, to be meek. But it's virtuous for all of God's children, okay? There is no reason to silence, to deplatform, to decenter one group or certain groups, and to center, platform, and listen to other groups. Truth is universal. Truth is God. Truth is objective. Truth is freely available to all. White people do not have less of a handle on truth than do black people. Women don't have a more immediate access to truth or to virtue than do men. This is a very divisive idea, and it's antithetical to God. There is no reason to silence, decenter, or deplatform certain groups while we constantly listen to, center, and platform other groups. That is not the gospel. That is not according to God. The second thing that I want to point out is that this woman speaks at you, not unlike the way that Kamala Harris speaks at you, which is as if you are 5 years old. And that's actually quite fitting because there is an obsession with educating yourself as a white person, allowing yourself to be educated, putting on your listening ears, like she says. And I want you to understand that this is constant. This is never ending. It will never end. There is no end date. You are in a contract. If you give these people even an inch, you are in a contract that has very vague terms, and that is purposeful because it will not end. There will never come a day when non-white progressives say, you know what? The white people have been really well behaved. They've done everything we've asked. They've educated themselves. They've even paid us reparations. We're going to say we're good now. You know, racism is solved. We're good. We're good to go. That day will never come. These people are operating under the idea that America was founded on racism. They're operating under the idea that it's been racist every single day since. They're operating under the idea that racism is woven into the very fabric of our nation. And you can't go back and rewrite that. So the only thing to do then is to destroy. And that is what they are trying to do. Understand that if you give these people even an inch, it is not just yourself who you are denigrating. It is your children, if they are white. It is your children's children, and so on and so forth, because it will never end. I read How to Be an Anti-Racist, and in fact, I read it when I wasn't even a hardline conservative. I had just walked away from the Democratic Party. It was in 2020. And even then, I was shocked at this quote from Ibram X. Kendi. He says that the only remedy for past discrimination is present discrimination, and the only remedy for present discrimination is future discrimination. Now, obviously, I don't have to tell you that that is a recipe for endless discrimination, and that is, in fact, what these people want. So understand that. The third thing that I want to offer to you is that you'll often hear race baiters say things like, well, white Americans, they get to be individuals. They get to see themselves as individuals and be seen as individuals. But non-white Americans, we don't get to be individuals. We have to carry the entirety of our race on our backs. But what I want to present to you is actually that's not true. I mean, look at this Zoom call. Were the white women on this Zoom call treated as individuals, or were they treated like a monolith? They were treated like a monolith. And what I would actually like to offer to you is that in present day America, White people actually get none of the benefits of being seen as this monolithic community because there is no white American community, right? There's no brotherhood, there's no sisterhood. You don't get to say that you're proud to be white. You're oftentimes actually told you have no culture if you're white. You don't get to say, oh, thank God we have a white woman in this position because we really needed a white woman. You don't get to say any of that. So you get none of the benefits of being in this kind of monolith, this big community, but you get all of the negatives, meaning that whenever a white person messes up, whenever they want to make an example of white people, whenever they want to educate white people, that's a big one. Suddenly you're part of this monolith. Suddenly you're part of this white community whenever it suits them. So you actually don't get to be an individual. I mean, you can eschew all this like I do and be an individual. But they talk as if only white people have the freedom, only white people have the privilege to be individuals, but then they treat white people like a monolith when it suits them. So note that. And in fact, the entirety of critical race theory depends upon treating skin colors as monoliths. And I want for you to reject that. And I'll say to this what I've been saying a lot recently, because ever since Kamala entered the race 2 seconds ago and was gifted the nomination, there has been no shortage of tweets and videos that often start with the phrase, "Dear white women," and after that phrase, you know, nothing good is going to come. And a lot of these videos and tweets, they have such a weird blend of victim complex mixed with superiority complex, you know? And they are really treating white women, white people really, but white women are more prone to allow for this to happen. They're treating white women as if they are non-white people's pets, as if we have shat on your carpet and now you're gonna rub our nose in it to make an example of us because we voted for Trump in 2016 or whatever the case may be. You don't own my vote. I don't owe you my vote. And what I have seen in all of this anti-white rhetoric is really, you're not campaigning for my vote. You're not trying to win me over. You're just blaming and shaming and trying to manipulate me to vote the way you want me to vote. My vote is not here for you. My vote is not here for you to get the justice that you think you're deserved. You don't own me. I'm not part of any sisterhood. I don't feel a special kinship to women. I'm not going to vote for a woman just because she's a woman. I don't feel any special indebtedness towards non-white people in the same way that I don't feel any special kinship towards white people. I am an individual through and through. And the anti-white rhetoric has been like out of control. You see it in how they divide their Zoom calls by gender and skin color and or race. It's ridiculous. Because when you're trying to get someone elected, you have the same job whether you're black or white, male or female. There's no reason to divide in this way. And yet here they are doing it. The last thing that I want to cover is that if you are a white person who has grown up struggling, who has family members who still struggle, who has parents who still struggle, maybe you yourself, you still struggle, you know what it is to have a hard life, to work hard, to struggle, you are like kryptonite to their narrative, to this whole idea of white privilege. And they hate that. You are Teflon. I have said before in sharing my walkaway story that what planted the seed for me to walk away years later was this narrative around white privilege. It must have been 2017 was around the first time that I heard the phrase, and it seems like overnight it popped up everywhere. And even though I was so liberal, so Democrat, the minute that I heard that and every time since, it never sat right with me because it didn't match my experience. I'm blessed in many ways. You are as well, just to be an American. But I come from a family that struggles, okay? And that's not unique. Most white Americans struggle. I come from a family that struggles. And I didn't say anything at the time because I was Democrat, because I was an actress, but it sat like a rock in the pit of my stomach. And then it took 2-3 years later, 2020, when the response to COVID already really wasn't kind of making sense. And then summer 2020 came around and I was told I couldn't go to work, but I could go out and protest or riot or loot. And that didn't sit right with me. That was so hypocritical. And every time I brought it up, I was called racist by people who knew me and liked me. People who knew me and liked me. And it was as if this whole narrative about white privilege came full circle, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back, and I walked away from the Democratic Party. Because I know the truth. You know the truth. The only people who buy this idea about white privilege are wealthy white people who erroneously attribute their easier access in life to their white skin color as opposed to their wealth, and non-white people. Now, not every non-white person buys into this lie, not by a long shot, but non-white people, like wealthy white people, they don't necessarily know the difference. Non-white people can look at their lives being hard, and erroneously attribute it to their skin color. Same thing that wealthy white people can do, look at their lives being easier, erroneously attribute it to their skin color. But you and me, we know the truth because we've lived it. So stay the course. This is a racist, anti-white campaign. These are superficial, godless people. I think we do have a big fight against us, but I think we can win. Let's make America great again.